Hi, I'm Dana Royalty, and I'm here today to show you how to do a really easy quilt, a rag quilt, and using your machine. And this is a great quilt for beginner quilters because I am not a quilter, I do not sew, but I did find this little project and I did it and I found it to be quite simple. And I've had several people asking me to show them how to do it, so I thought I would make a video to show you. This is one that I recently made. This is a John Deere quilt that I made for my nephew who is getting ready to have a little boy. And this project is completely free of hand sewing. It's all done on the machine and it's really simple and it's very forgiving for beginner quilters. So it's really easy. So here's what you do. You're going to start out by picking some fabrics. I would recommend that you pick at least 4, but I mean you could have as many as you want. This would be a great project for some old scrap pieces of fabric. I recommend that you get a nice soft back for your quilt. I like to use this little bubbly fabric that's called Minky. It's because it's really soft, and so it'll make the quilt so nice to sleep with. Flannels are also really good to use in the quilt. In this quilt I used a yellow flannel, but I also used some cottons. So you can do a mixture of fabrics and it doesn't matter. But here is how I made this quilt. And once you know how to do the basics of it, you can make just about anything. The quilt that I'm working on now is a University of Kentucky quilt. Go Cats! Because we are big Kentucky fans here. So I went out and I selected 4 different fabrics. I selected 2 UK print fabrics, as a blue, and then I got one that has a little bit more white in it. And then I love chevron because chevron is so popular right now, so I found a royal blue chevron. And then I decided to go with the white Minky fabric that I was talking about. A white flannel would be good too. But I like, I'm going to use this as part of the front of my quilt and for the entire back of the quilt. The next thing you need to do is decide on what size you want your squares. I decided to go with an 8-inch square, which is what I used here. And even though you start off with 8 inches, when you get the squares actually completed, it's going to be more of 6 to 7 inch squares. But I just took a ruler very simply and measured out and cut my first 8-inch square. And then I used that as a pattern to cut all of my other squares out. And if these are not absolutely perfect, it's not going to matter because of the little cutting that we're going to do between those. Once you get those cut out, and like I said, you could do a 10-inch square if you wanted to instead of the 8-inch. You could go even bigger, or you could go small and do a really small square. The next thing you're going to do is, if you want to use batting, which batting makes it really cute and a little puffier, just get a basic quilt batting. This batting, it says polyfill with extra loft. It's just a batting that's pretty thin. I took that and I cut it into smaller squares, and these are about probably 5 inches. You don't have to be real exact, but they just need to basically be a square. I wasn't real precise with any of the cutting on this, so it's not terribly detailed. But once you do that, I've got all of these squares cut out in 8-inch squares of all my different fabrics. Once I get those done, then I'm going to come over here to the machine and show you what you do next. I have a stack here of all of the fronts. And I have laid these out on the floor and put the design together that I want. And I highly recommend you do that ahead of time. My design is going to be 7 squares wide by 9 squares long. And that's going to make a nice big throw size quilt that you could put over you on the couch. So once I get my design laid out, I take a photo of it on my phone so that when I want to look back and see what my design was, when I put my rows together, I know exactly which pieces go where. So I have a stack over here. These are all of the back of my quilt. However many squares I'm going to have on the front, since I'm doing 7 by 9, that's 63 squares total. I need 63 squares for the back as well. And you can do the back in mixed fabrics, but it just makes a nicer looking quilt, I think, if the back is all the same. So this is the back. So what I do is I lay down my back, and then I put a piece of batting in the middle, and then I get one of my front squares. And I lay that just directly on top of it. And all I'm going to do is put those two corners together, and I'm going to come to my machine now. And you don't have to go all the way to the corner, but I'm going to put that down, and I'm going to pull this corner down and line it up. And I'm just going to feed this through there. And what I'm going to do is make an X pattern on this. And it's just going to feed through itself in a nice straight line if you'll just, you know, kind of watch it. Okay, go almost to the corner and then just cut that off. And then you'll see we have a nice line down through there. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other corners and just make a simple X pattern. And I am not an experienced machine sewer. This was all brand new to me. And I had no problem doing this. And if you don't get perfectly in the corner, it does not matter because you're going to be cutting the edges of this anyway. So this is what you're going to get is a square with an X pattern, and you can see that you can now see the quilting underneath it. So I take those and I put them in a pile. Then the next thing I do is I'm going to refer back to my picture where I laid it all out before. And I'm going to see what does my first row need to look like when I start attaching my rows together. So this is how you'll attach when you get to the rows. You'll take two of the pieces that you've already done the stitching on, and you are going to put the backs of those together and the corners together, like that. And then you're going to need to decide how wide you want your border. I usually do mine about 3/4 of an inch. So it's usually somewhere between 1/2 and 3/4 inch on this size. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run that right down the middle, or right down the side there, to attach these two together. Okay, so then you've got this, okay? I have one over here. This is my top row that I have already sewed together. So this is what you're going to get when you get your whole top row together. And you'll see that you have these pieces sticking up, and when we're finished with our quilt, we're going to go through and snip those, and that's what gives it that nice little rag look. So we'll come back later and see how that went.